I recently did a review of the AAPC salary survey, which revealed the increase in pay for AAPC instructors. And since then, I've had a lot of people asking me about how to become a medical coding instructor and then also what to do if you don't want to license the AAPC's curriculum. So I'm going to be covering that and a lot more in today's video. If you're new here, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. First, I want to talk to you guys about how you become an AAPC approved instructor and how that kind of is different from the CPCI, I guess. Prior to having the title approved instructor, it was just CPCI. And in order to become a CPCI, you used to have your CPC and your COC. You would have to go in person to like a conference, take a workshop. At the end of it, you would have to take this excruciating test, and they would test you on your teaching abilities too. And now it's a lot easier. You can practically do all of it online. I'm not sure that the course on becoming an approved instructor has changed much over the years. A lot of it is really just about licensing their curriculum and a little bit about different types of learners. And the test itself, which you can take the test for any of the core credentials that you hold, is basically an advanced version of that certification exam. So for example, if you have a CPC and a COC and a CRC and you say, hey, I think I can do better with the CRC exam, the exam you're going to take is called the CRC instructor, and it's just an abridged version of that certification exam, and I believe they probably pull harder questions from their test bank. So essentially, in order to become an instructor, you have to have 5 years of experience. You have to go through the approved instructor training program that they have. There's a bit of a peer review that you have to submit, and then you have to pass the exam for whatever core credential instructor examination version you're going to take. And then once you do that, the AAPC will allow you to pay to license any of the material for any of the credentials that you have with AAPC. Now, not all of them, I believe they have instructor curriculum for. I think some of the specialties they might not, but all of the core curriculum, I believe they do. So even if you took that CRC instructor exam, if you have multiple other credentials like a CPMA, you can license that curriculum as well. You also have to submit CTUs instead of CEUs. CEUs are your continuing education credits. CTUs are your continuing teaching units. TUs don't have to be through an approved program, so there's no like vendor submission approval you have to go to get approved for CTUs. You can submit anything that you feel is teaching appropriate. So if you go to a development workshop that teaches you about how to communicate with others, I oftentimes will do things like use workshops that I go to on how to promote on social media, or even audiobooks. So I'll use, if it's a personal development or how to teach type of thing, I will use 1 hour of audio for one CTU. So being an AAPC approved instructor doesn't prove that you are like the utmost authority in medical coding. All it really does is show that you were able to pass one certification exam and that now you are able to license the AAPC's curriculum, which you have to pay heartily for. The annual licensing fee for the AAPC starts at $3,500. I think sometimes you get discounts depending on what kind of program you're doing. And then each additional curriculum that you want to license, like if you want to start with CPC and then also get CRC, it's a little bit less of a fee per each curriculum that you want to license. So it might be like $3,500 for the first one, and then $2,500 for the second one, and then $2,000 for the next. You see where I'm getting? It kind of goes down from there. Now, the issue a lot of people are having with the AAPC curriculum is that licensing fee doesn't end there. In addition to paying the licensing fees, you also have to provide the AAPC's official materials, meaning that you have to provide the CPC training manual or CRC training manual. You don't have to provide them books. You can tell the students to independently purchase their own books. But you also have student fees if you are teaching in a hybrid or online model. So if you're teaching in person, there's no additional fees. But if you're teaching hybrid, it's $150 per student. And for online, it's $400 per student. So when you're selling a course, the first several $100s of it actually just winds up going to the AAPC. Now, there are lots of perks to that because you don't have to develop the curriculum. You don't have to spend all that time developing test banks. You don't have to develop the slides. You can get discounts for your students. They can get, I think, like a super discount to HealthCon. Student membership is cheaper. They can get materials for cheaper through you. So it is a lot easier. You can just just open things up and hey, you're open for business. You've licensed the curriculum, you can use it to teach students. But it is an annual fee, which means it has to be renewed every single year. So it's not like you pay that $3,000 one time, you pay it every single year. And you have to sign a contract with the AAPC. Now, the contract is a little bit negotiable. I have had some in the past year that had some things in them that I did not approve of and was able to red line out and work with my lawyer to reword. For example, the last contract had a pretty hardy non-compete clause that I felt swayed more in their favor and was a little overextensive for what I was agreeable to, but we were able to come to some terms. I had my lawyer rework it, and now it is more fair for both parties. I definitely want to respect the work that the AAPC puts into developing this material because I know it takes an extraordinary amount of work, but I didn't felt that that should preclude me from doing some other things. I've also had some things in my contract that say like I can't develop my own curriculum for 12 months after the end of my contract, and I've spoken to other instructors that have told me they've never had that in their contract before. So definitely make sure you read over your contract if you're thinking about licensing the curriculum. Now, when you sign with the AAPC, they also give you their LMS. Their LMS is Blackboard. It's not the best LMS, but, it's what the AAPC uses, and it's sufficient. Now, recently, the AAPC has given some more attention to and done some audits of the instructor protocol, so it's my understanding that a lot more people are reluctant to license the AAPC's curriculum. So what are your other options in that situation? Licensing the AAPC curriculum is very easy because it's kind of plug and play. You don't have to develop anything yourself. And also, you can add multiple instructors to the same license. So if you want to build a team of instructors, that can sometimes reduce some of those licensing fees. But you have to be like actually people that are working together, not just random people you found online to add to your license. And before I forget, one of the other perks of being an AAPC approved instructor is you get a whole bunch of CEU applications, which are nice because their applications, not like per CEU, and vendor fees have gone up quite considerably. So you could host like an all-day seminar and that would only be one application, even if you're applying for like 8 CEUs. Now, considering they've been putting more eyeballs on different things lately and vendor fees have gone up and now they're looking at instructor stuff, it wouldn't shock me entirely if there were some changes coming in regards to those CEU applications. So aside from licensing the official AAPC curriculum, your options are a little bit limited, especially if you want to consider things like medical terminology and anatomy, which we know that you need to have before you learn medical coding. So if you have people that are new to healthcare, you have to figure out the solution of how are we going to get them to learn medical terminology, anatomy, and possibly even physiology. Are you going to outsource that and say, go to the AAPC first? Are you going to develop your own medical terminology program and include that in what you're offering? Are you going to give them other resources? Like, how are you going to combat the med-term and anatomy part of it? You can check websites like Teachers Pay Teachers. There are some resources there for med-term that I think are like supplements to some YouTube curriculum that's out there. So you could possibly say, hey, I'm going to embed in here these worksheets and things, and you need to pass them on these YouTube videos. But then, of course, if the YouTube videos ever go away, you still have those problems. If it was me personally and I had all of the time and resources in the world, I would develop a companion course to medical terminology and anatomy for coding, that book. I think that would be a good resource. If you're looking for something that's more plug and play, you can register as an instructor with Elsevier. Elsevier does the step-by-step medical coding curriculum. That's what I used to teach with 10 plus years ago when I was at the technical school. So they will provide you with things like slides and exams and all of that kind of curriculum that you can use for teaching classes online that way. I will link below where you can register with Elsevier and find out more about providing instruction with the step-by-step medical coding curriculum. Other than that, pretty much your only other option is to develop your own curriculum from scratch. All of the slides, all of the study materials, test banks, practice exams, everything you would have to develop yourself. And I would say be very careful about taking things from other people's intellectual property. You can't just go online and search medical coding practice exams and be like, I found this and now it's mine and I'm going to use it for my curriculum. Because although I understand there's people online that do that, they take things from quizzes, for example, and they're like, oh, this is mine, I'm going to use this or have it be part of my paid membership or whatever. While that might seem like, oh, other people are doing it and that makes it okay, that can catch up to people in the long run. So definitely be careful of not infringing on anyone else's intellectual property or copyrights. And speaking of copyrights, keep in mind that while ICD-10-CM is free to use, CPT is licensed by the AMA. So depending on what type of material you are developing, you may have to include licensing fees to CPT. Now, in discussions I've personally had with the AMA in the past, they're like, hey, if you're teaching medical coding and I have a CPT book, my student has the CPT book, it's the same year or whatever, that's not a violation because we have the same material. But if you're planning on developing and selling, for example, some sort of book, you have to pay an annual fee to the AMA. I think it's around $1,000. And then per item, per member, you have to pay, I think it's $1,750 or $1,950 as well. You also need to check with your state as far as if online courses are considered a taxable source. And you also have to check with your state under digital media and online courses and what does and does not need to be taxed for your state and sent to the state for tax purposes. And speaking of state requirements, as far as your courses go, I would really discourage calling your company anything that is school, institute, college of, because what's going to happen is your state, if they see that you call yourself coding college, they're going to think you are a college, which means you're at risk then of being sent paperwork from the state saying that you have to abide with all of the laws and regulations that a college would have to abide by. So if you're not prepared to do that, please, for the love of God, do not call yourself a college. Now, as far as hosting classes, you can use things like Eventbrite and just sell through that. You can even just set up Zoom. I think they have some new programs now with Zoom that you can do payments through them. Or if you want to do something like set up a Shopify store and enroll people that way, there's lots of different options out there. But let's talk a little bit about learning management systems, the LMS. The two top competitors in the LMS are Kajabi, that's kind of the platinum version, and Teachable is another one as well. What a learning management system does is it allows you to upload videos and quizzes and track progress of your students as they're going through your online course, and of course take payments as well. Kajabi, depending on what version you're getting, is anywhere from $100 to $400 a month. Teachable does have a free program, but then there is a percentage for a transaction fee that they take for each course sold. And then I think it's up to about $200 a month. I use a program that's called New Zenler. I think you can even get a discount if you use my affiliate code below. I'll link that. But I like it because it's very comprehensive. It's almost like the UK kind of version of Kajabi. It includes email services. It includes my entire website. It includes my learning management system. There's a lot of additional, even a Zoom platform. They embed a Zoom platform. You can use the one that you have privately and embed that as well. But it's like a one-stop shop, and it's a lot less than what you pay for Kajabi. I've never had issues with it. They do have a free trial you can do where they charge a percentage for interest for each sale that you make. So check out the link below if you're interested in signing up for that. Now, as far as recording your classes, let's say you've developed your own slides and you're like, hey, I want to do this. You could do live Zooms. You could use recordings if you want to do on demand. You can record on Google Slides or PowerPoint. You can record on Zoom with a free account. If you're someone who does live streaming or you want to do live streaming, you can do recordings, just record only through Streamlabs, which I recommend. And I will link below if you're interested in signing up for Streamlabs. It makes live streaming just so incredibly easy. But there's also Loom and other screen sharing software you can use as well. Now, as far as editing, you can do your own editing. You can get a free version of CapCut. You could hire someone for cheap off of Fiverr. You could use Descript. Descript is a program that I use often. It does things like take out blank spaces. It takes out little ums and ahs, which is nice. And there's features that can read dub parts. So say, for example, you're going through your course and you're looking at it and you go, oh my gosh, I said Medicare instead of Medicaid. You can quick go in really easily with Descript and just have it basically fake your voice to correct that. And then as far as equipment, there's everything from super high-end to very low budget. I've spoken many times that when I started my YouTube channel, I did it literally recording on my phone. I would recommend at very minimum, a good plug-and-play USB microphone. Blue Yeti makes decent ones that are really easy to use. a document camera if you want to share your book. I will link below the ones that I utilize. You also have to determine how long you're going to have classes. Are they going to be 12 weeks, 16 weeks? How long are they going to be? And how much material are you going to provide? And then you need to determine what are you going to do as far as questions. Are students going to submit them through some sort of portal? Is there going to be a community? Are they just going to email you questions? How are you going to handle that? Because you need to be able to set boundaries. This is so incredibly critical because especially with students, a lot of them are studying when? In the evenings and weekends. And if they're studying and they're like, I don't understand this, and they're frustrated, and it's Saturday at 9 p.m. and they're emailing you questions, and, are you going to let them call you at Saturday 9 p.m.? Because I don't know about anyone else. I don't want to be bothered Saturday at 9 p.m. And if you're doing on demand, you might have one person asking you an ICD-10-CM question, another might be doing cardiology, CPT, and others HCPCS. So are you going to set them certain time frames, or is everyone going to be on demand doing this all at different times? So you might be getting 50 different questions at all hours of the night from 50 different people. You need to set your boundaries as far as if you have questions, this is how we're going to handle them. Even things like turnaround time. Maybe you'll say, 2 business days, so don't expect me to answer on the weekends. And then another consideration you have to think about is refunds. One of the problems I faced in the past is I would take payment plans. And what would happen is I would have like a $600 course, and someone would make that first $200 payment, and then they would change their credit card number, cancel that payment. And because I'd already sent out fees for the online student enrollment and for the course materials, I wound up eating money. So you really need to think about, what are you going to do if someone gets like halfway through your course and they're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to sell you back my books and my materials, and I want my money back. Also, keep in mind, depending on what credentials you're offering, you might want to offer CEUs for your course. Now, the CPC, you probably will get away with not offering CEUs for, because most people who are just getting their CPC, it's like their first credential, and you can't get CEUs before you have your first credential. But let's say you want to offer a course for the CRC, and it's geared towards people who already have their CPC. They might say, hey, I want CEUs for completing this course, which means you need to go in and pay the vendor fee for CEUs. So let's say the course qualifies for 10 CEUs. That's over $1,300 that you have to pay to the AAPC as a vendor for CEUs. Although if you consider what you would have to pay for AAPC Curriculum and for the student fees, let's weigh that, and you're probably going to come out ahead just paying for the vendor fees. Now, as far as how do I promote my course, that's where it starts to get a little bit tricky. You absolutely cannot just go online into all of the Facebook groups and forums and start spamming everyone with all of your stuff. But how do you promote if people don't know who you are? This is where things like the 80-20 rule come in. 80% of the time, you should just be giving online. Here's a free quiz I developed. Here's a podcast. Here's a video. Here's how you can get a taste of who I am, a flavor. And oh, by the way, if you like all of this type of material, I also teach the curriculum. And if you're interested in signing up, here's where you can sign up. If you're just going on LinkedIn and posting and on Facebook and posting, bye, me, people are going to tune out. And it is up to local chapters to determine who they will allow to promote to their local chapter. So some local chapters might say, hey, you know what? Teresa over here, she's presented for our chapter a bunch of times. We like her. We know she provides quality materials. You are free to post in our Facebook group if you are having a course or a seminar or whatever. That is up to each individual chapter and the chapter officers to determine if they will or will not allow a vendor to have promotional posts or say promotional things during their chapter meeting. So if you're just going out there and spamming all of the chapter Facebook groups, you may find out that you wind up getting flagged and blocked from those groups. So work with those local chapters, talk to them, say, hey, I'd like to promote this, and let them know at what frequency. Are you going to post once a month? Are you just going to post one time per event? Are you going to be posting every other day? Which, why would you do that? But really make sure that you're giving too, that you're not just asking of people. 80% give, 20% ask. And finally, with making your own materials, don't forget that you also have to update them every single year, which means every year when we get ICD-10-CM updates, you would have to go through all your quizzes, all your test banks, all of that material, and make sure that it's still accurate or hasn't changed. So really give some consideration towards, the cost of doing it yourself versus licensing curriculum versus going by step, and really what is worth your time. Maybe if you're like, hey, you know what, if I just devote some time, I can make the best program out there, it might be worth it to just do it yourself. And it depends on your goals too. I'm not good at managing people, so I don't want to have to bring on a whole team, so I intentionally do not scale my business. So that is it. That is how you can do medical billing and coding instruction. You have a couple of options. You can DIY, you have Elsevier, you have the AAPC curriculum. There's lots of options to weigh and consider. We've covered a lot of ground, and make sure that you are financially prepared for this decision as well, because if you're going to be buying books and all kinds of things and setting up websites, it's going to cost a lot of money. Really reflect on this and kind of decide how you want to carve your own path, what services you are wanting to provide, and what your personal goals and boundaries are as well. If you have any other comments or questions about becoming a medical coding instructor, definitely let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.